Hello guys and welcome. It is I, Frieza700, and we are back with some 40k lore. This is actually 30k lore, but I'm gonna let you guys guess what this chapter is, or what it will later become. Now this chapter is a very interesting chapter because its lore is kind of conflicted, and we only have second-hand sources to really get what this chapter was. Now I'm calling it a chapter, but just know that during its history, it was only known as a legion. So this is back when the Emperor was around and the Primarchs. So let's dive right into the lore and the theories behind it. Now, immediately with the origins of this legion, there's already a bit of a lore conflict, and this is something that I'm kind of unsure about, so I'm just going to tell you both sides. So on one side, when the Emperor was conquering Earth, he used the Thunder Warriors, which were like the before Space Marines. They were temporary, they weren't really, I should say, as long lasting as the Space Marines, but they were still strong in their own way, but they were better suited for conquering Terra. And then after that, he stopped making Thunder Warriors, he started making Space Marines. On the other side, in the War Hounds lore, it is stated that they fought during the War of Terra. Now that's kind of contradictory, but either way, when it comes to their origins, we know that when it came to recruiting, they weren't assigned a geographical location or a sort of tech tribe, which is very odd because a lot of the legions at the time that the Emperor had chosen, well, each legion were using their recruits from specific geographical locations on Earth because certain tribes and tech nations at that time were specialized and suited for whatever roles that the legions would fulfill. Like if you wanted fast guys, you would kind of look at Asia, that kind of ordeal. Well, this chapter, the War Hounds, didn't have that. And some speculate that what happened was either A, they just kind of took the recruits that were just randomly given to them, or B, they only took the most unstable and most aggressive candidates across all of the world. Whoever was chosen to be a Space Marine candidate, if they were showing signs of aggression and signs of just overall anger, then they would be switched from whatever legion that they were assigned to the 12th Legion, which is the War Hounds. Now that is kind of like how they started. But other than that, what are they? You may be thinking, like, what makes the War Hounds so damn special? After all, like, if they're just Space Marines, then they have to be like the other Space Marines where they have something unique about them. And you're right, there is something unique about these guys. These guys like to butcher. And by butcher, I mean fucking slaughter. It's actually a well-known Imperial fact that whenever you deploy the War Hounds, there's only two outcomes to the deployment of their forces. Either A, it's going to be a glorious slaughter, or B, simple slaughter. That is it. There is no other way. Now, what differentiates the two, you may ask? What's the difference between a glorious and a simple? Well, glorious slaughter is where they don't take many casualties and they just butcher the resistance. The second one, simple slaughter, is the more common slaughter that you would see when you deploy the War Hounds, which is both sides took massive casualties. Now, this is kind of weird for a Space Marine to have such high attrition whenever they're deployed, but it's even weirder that during the pre-Horus Heresy, during the Great Crusade, that the Emperor had a force like this. Like, why would he need such a barbaric and chaotic legion like this? Well, some speculated that it was due to being a necessity evil, as in, whenever a person decided to rebel against the Imperium during the Great Crusade, The Emperor didn't have time to pull back his legions and go, hey, stop conquering the galaxy, we got one planet full of assholes. No. He just decided, well, the War Hounds are going to be so brutal and so effective at butchering, slaughtering this planet that all the other planets will fall in line. We kind of see this with the Night Lords on how they would torture people so well that planets would surrender before they even came to their system, just out of sheer fear of what the Imperium could do. So it was understandable that the War Hounds may have been made for this purpose, such as they'll butcher you and just like corpses everywhere. No matter how hard the resistance is going to be slaughter. And that would be enough to scare a militia into saying, fuck that, we're loyal. Another suggestion, which is one I talked about with Angron, is that judging by the way that they were conducted, some speculated that they were actually used as like a secret police force. But not just a police force, but also as a force that would break a stalemate. This has a lot more credence to it. Not so much the secret police part, but they were definitely used to break a stalemate. They were always scattered and deployed in tiny little groups, numbering from a few thousand to 8,000. The largest one was the 13th fleet of the War Hounds, which consisted of 8,000 Warhound Space Marines. This is really what the War Hounds kind of centered around. This was kind of like their main force. But the other parts of their chapter were scattered around and were always kind of like an auxiliary, kind of like a regiment that would just sit in reserve while the other Space Marine legions did all the work. Now you may think, well, why would a Space Marine need more Space Marines to help him? This is during the Great Crusade where there were hundreds of thousands of Space Marines in one chapter. Yes. This is where it became really obvious that the War Hounds were excellent shock troops. Essentially, if you were Space Wolves and you were just fighting the Xenos threat and they have this weird impenetrable artillery line that you just cannot get through without taking massive casualties, and the Imperial Guard are just useless to help you, you're going to look at these guys who are sitting here doing absolutely fuck all nothing, and you're going to tell them, hey, we need you. They won't even question what it is you need them for. They're going to already deploy and just let loose the dogs of war and just charge in for close melee combat, going through heavy artillery rounds just to butcher the fuckers who are shooting at them. This is what the War Hounds are known for. And thankfully, we actually know of a planet that actually did betray the Imperium. We know of a dumb motherfuckers from a backwater planet called Cerberus. Now, Cerberus was an Imperial colony that rose up to rebellion. And it became quickly apparent to the Imperium that Imperial guards are not cut to just deal with this shit. This is going to require Space Marines. But all the Space Marines are in expedition fleets all across the galaxy. Where are we going to get Space Marines? Well, the Emperor activated the War Hounds. Now, he gave them a specific personal message to the War Hounds. He said, carry out his wrath to those that defied him. Well, at 3 a.m., Cerberus was invaded by the War Hounds. And the all-clear signal saying that they had won was transmitted at 8 a.m. at 8 minutes. When the people who were receiving this signal got this message, their first thought was, where are the prisoners? How many prisoners do you have? So we can process them and we can determine how big of a labor camp we're going to need to set up. The War Hounds simply replied, we weren't ordered to take any. And that was it. That was his whole transaction. The War Hound commander only said, "We did not receive orders to take any prisoners." Okay, that's a little fucking alarming. What the fuck do you mean you weren't ordered to take any prisoners? Did you really not take any prisoners? Are they like running in the forest somewhere or something? Did you not do your job? So they sent Imperial Army troops to garrison the planet. And after they come onto the planet, they realized, oh, by the Emperor. There are fucking bodies everywhere. Civilian, military, and Astartes alike. There was nothing left on this fucking planet that wasn't butchered. Yeah, the War Hounds earned a reputation, suffice to say, as being a very bloodthirsty legion. Now, due to this, they were actually held in reserve, and all of the legion was gathered up into the 13th Fleet, known as the Bloody 13th, and they just put them along with a few other abhumans and a few Imperial regiments that were known for their same ruthlessness and bloodthirst nature. They put them all on one planet called Bodt. Bot? I don't know how the fuck you pronounce that. B-O-D-T. And this world's a volcanic world. Now, while they were on this world, they decided, we're gonna train extremely. So whenever the Emperor gives us the call, the Hounds will be ready to be unleashed. This earned them their name, the War Hounds. Now, while they were on this planet, though, they became very upset, and for obvious reasons. But you may be thinking, why would the Emperor use this very good legion in the backlines? Why would he not deploy them? Well, there's one simple reason. This is one theory I have. When you are going across the galaxy and you're conquering empires and destroying Xenos, the whole point is to make yourself look like the good guy. So that way, worlds that are inhabited by humans would be willing to join you without bloodshed. Well, the whole Warhound ordeal kinda goes against that idea. Because if I spent generations living with some blueberry of a Xeno race, and they treated me fine. Yeah, sure, they enslave some humans every now and then, but they treat me personally fine. And then I hear about this empire of humans that support human rights, are against slavery, they don't beat you over the head for whatever religious purpose. That sounds great. But then if I look at a video of them fighting and I see these butcherers massacring civilians, my first thought is, hey, blueberries, you should fuck the Imperium. We are not gonna join these guys. Fuck that noise. So that's a big reason why this Warhound force wasn't used. As good as they were, it was better to keep them on a planet away from the fucking fighting. Now, of course, there started to become morale issues. Like, they were starting to become nervous. Because now not only are they being taken away from the fighting so they feel like they did something wrong, but now they don't have a Primarch. In fact, every other Legion has their Primarch. Theirs is still waiting. They're like, what the fuck? Where's our Primarch? Well, they found Angron. And they brought Angron aboard. And they realized this isn't a good thing. Our Primarch didn't have an empire. He got saved because he was so fucking terrible. Well, the chapter master and a few officers of senior status went up to the Primarch, and upon their first meeting, they were told by the Emperor, do not fight back. That's a little fucking odd. Why would the Emperor tell us not to fight? Oh my god, Angron, no, I'm just trying to be friends, no! Yeah, Angron was so fucking pissed at the Emperor, he killed all of the senior staff, whoever tried to talk to him. Eventually, a captain known as Karn, or Kane, I don't know how you pronounce that name. He finally gets through to Angron, and Angron finally assumes control of his legion. This is where he renames it to the ones, the only World Eaters. Yep, this is a traitor legion. This is a legion that gets the butcher nails installed in their fucking heads because of Angron's little daddy issues. Now, of course, there's a lot of things about this chapter that I always found interesting, but the most interesting thing I thought about it was that they were filling a necessity. They were filling a role that in modern day 40K, I think that they should actually bring this chapter back. I'm talking about the modern Imperium, 40K Imperium. If they're gonna make any fucking Marines anymore, any new Space Marines, I think they should use Angron's gene seed that they have in storage. Because now we're in a time during the Imperium where they actually need to do wholesale slaughter against the Tyranids, against the Tau, against everybody. The only problem is that because they're related to Angron, they won't use it. And this is kind of like one of the interesting things that you could actually argue that the Emperor kind of foresaw everything in the future, is that when people foresee in the future, they're not too sure when the future is going to come. So they just kind of get prepared. Well, if the Emperor saw the future and he saw 40K 10,000 years after the Horus Heresy, then yes, it would make sense that he would make this Legion. Because this Legion is perfect for 40K. A time where the Xenos are just becoming an incredible threat. A time where traitors and rebellions are just always happening. And the Imperium is on the verge of collapse. This chapter would be great to bring back to life. It's just that because of their PR issue, because of their little human resources issue where they butcher civilians back during the Great Crusade when things were actually nice, they were put on the back burners. And of course, this didn't really help at all when it came to their whole loyalty thing. Besides that though, I hope you guys like this chapter. I like this chapter because of the fact that they were just, before Angron even took control, they were already bloodthirsty, and they were just shock troopers who would just unleash the dogs of war. But then when Angron took over, he not only unleashed the dogs of war, he even said it himself, is that these guys are not dogs. They're not war hounds. A dog comes to heal. That's what the Space Wolves do. We should have been the wolves. They are the dogs. And that's something I actually really agree with. And I thought it was ironic, is that no matter how much Leman Russ may have hated Angron, the name of their legions should have been swapped. Because the Space Wolves was always sent out by the Emperor to go do things, and they would never question. They always just did whatever. But the Bloody 13th, also known as the War Hounds, they just wanted to kill. They didn't really care if the Emperor told them to or not. Like, the Emperor would have thought when he sent them to a Cerberus that they would have taken prisoners. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he actually knew what would have happened. But still, the Imperial higher-ups, they kind of acted like they were expecting prisoners. So maybe the Emperor told them, they may have prisoners. But judging by their actions on Cerberus, where they invaded the planet in less than 5 hours and destroyed every fucking thing with high casualties and massive collateral damage, I don't know. It becomes very obvious that this chapter wasn't meant for the Great Crusade. They were probably meant for 40K. Because there have been some known issues where the Emperor kind of acts like he's seen the future, but you can tell he really doesn't know for sure. And then his own Primarchs do see the future technically, but some of them don't, and some, they do see the future, but they get it so heavily skewed that they don't know when or where this is going to take place. And this would be an interesting feature if they add this into the lore, that they were kind of meant for something later, not now. But besides that, I hope you guys enjoyed. Just know, though, that this lore wasn't based on any first-hand documentation. This is actually based on second-hand sources, because this chapter is buried in a lot of secrets, which is just related to Angron in general. Angron has a lot of seals on his record that we just don't know about. So, besides that, see you guys next time. Let me know down in the comments below whether or not you thought this was interesting or not. I decided to do a chapter that is technically a Trader Legion, but I'm going to label it as a Space Marine chapter because this was before all that bullshit. Just let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys want to see next. And as always, like, comment, subscribe. I love you all. See you next time. And of course, I'm going to live stream Overlord later in the day. This time it's probably going to be an hour or two. And we're going to be dealing with the dwarves.